man with a dishonest smile in his mouth, just enough and his eyes bleak. And he moved with surprise, unlike most who were light. He wore a gray herringbone suit I decorated with part of it. His shirt was clean, which gave his brown loafers clashed, been polished recently. As I held the door between my once inside, if anyone had asked him as a second-grade mob, I was right. If he in his pants because his bulge of an underarm holster down carefully, and we stared at each other, sweating slightly, interested, but not friendly. He was a slight and the leather humidor where I cigarettes across the desk. Smoke, he rasped in a horrid taste of his tie. He reached into his coat and tossed a bill across the crisp $1,000. Save a guy's life once in a while. I reached for what's going on, I asked. I heard you level with your customers, Marlowe. That's why I came. $5,000 in it if you help me out. Who are you? I'm Mickey Rosenstein. I'll be missing, but good, unless you figure something out. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. I ran out on the outfit. That doesn't sit well. To them it means I've got information to sell or independent ideas, or I've just lost my nerve. Me, I lost my nerve. I've done bad things, scared and hurt guys. But I never killed anyone. Doesn't matter to them. I'm out of line and they drew a pencil through my name. The operators are already on the way. He licked his lips and went on explaining how he had made the mistake of trying to hole up in Las Vegas right under their noses. They had outsmarted him easily. Now he was marked. Specialists were coming, quiet men in suits carrying briefcases with guns, respectable fronts in towns like Buffalo or Kansas City, traveling west when called. They wouldn't rush him. They'd follow, watch, and strike up close. If I go to the cops, he said it won't help. For all I know, the outfit's got men on the city council. The cops would give me 24 hours to leave town, and then I'd be on my own. Mexico's worse. Canada maybe, but no good either. Australia, I can't even get a passport. Been here 25 years, all illegal. They can't deport me unless they pin a crime on me, and the outfit would see that they didn't. I puffed at my pipe, staring at the bill. My bank account wasn't exactly thriving. Suppose I could figure it out for you, I said. What's your next move? I know a place. If I could get there without being tailed, I'd leave my car here, rent another switch it for a second hand, then trade again for a new leftover model. Less chance of being spotted. It's a decent-sized town, still clean. That's where I'd go. I told him straight if I took the job, there were no rules. I'll take it for this grand and the rest if I bring it off. But don't cross me. If I get knocked off, just put a red rose on my grave. I don't like cut flowers, but one rose I'll take because you're such a sweet character. When's the plane in? I asked. About 5:30 p.m. from New York. They might switch in San Diego or San Francisco. Could be any of a dozen planes. I thought about it. He was right about one thing: women shouldn't be risked in work like this. But I knew someone I could trust, a girl named Anne Reen, the daughter of a police chief, who'd been broken for honesty. She had reason to hate the mob, and she was cool in a tight spot. I took the $1,000 note, refusing to give him a receipt. Then I told him to give me names, descriptions, anything he remembered of the operators he'd seen. He did his best, and though I doubted it would help much, I shook his moist hand before he left. The street outside was quiet, if such a thing existed anymore. Soon I would be at Anne's house asking for her help. She had money brains and bitterness that came from losing her parents to the crooked power of gambling mobs. She lived in a neat little house with a tiger's head knocker on the door, a place so well kept it made me wish I could mortgage half my soul just to own it. When she answered the door in a pale blue sport shirt and white shorts, Her gray-blue eyes searched mine with that same trace of bitterness I remembered. She stepped aside and I walked in. Anne settled on the davenport and lit her own cigarette, without waiting for me to play gentleman. She was that kind of woman, cool, efficient, no wasted motions. I looked around her living room, noticing a few changes since my last visit, but not many. "I need your help," I said. "That's the only time I ever see you," she replied, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. "I've got a client. Ex-Hood used to be a troubleshooter for the syndicate. You know it exists. It's as rich as Rockefeller. You can't beat it because not enough people want to, especially the million-a-year lawyers who defend them, and the bar associations that protect their own instead of the country." "Good heavens," she said with a faint smile. "You sound like you're running for office. I never knew you to get so pure." Her legs shifted casually, not to provoke, but it made it harder for me to think straight. "Stop moving your legs," I muttered, "or else put on some slacks." "Damn you, Marlowe," she said with mock exasperation. "Can't you think of anything else?" I swallowed my irritation. "The man's name is Icky Rosenstein. He's not much to look at, and I don't like him. But when I told him I needed a girl's help, he got angry. Said women weren't made for rough stuff. That's the only thing decent I've heard from his mouth, and it's why I took the job. To men like him, women mean no more than sacks of flour. If it's convenient, they use them. If it's not, they get rid of them." "So far, you've told me a whole lot of nothing," she said. "Maybe you need coffee." "You're sweet, but no. Icky's been penciled. That means he's marked. When they draw a line through your name, you're as good as dead. They don't do it for fun, it's bookkeeping." "And what can I do about it?" "You can help me spot their plane, follow them safely, and see where they go. They'll be quiet, polite, well-dressed. Briefcases with guns, the kind that change hands so often they can't be traced. Revolvers, maybe automatics. No silencers they jam. They won't sit together on the plane, but afterward they may shake hands, smile like old acquaintances, and disappear in the same taxi. They'll go to a hotel first, then somewhere they can watch Icky. They won't rush unless he makes a move that tips them off." She frowned. "And you expect me to follow them?" "Only if you can do it safely. If you spot them, keep calling me. You know my office number." "You're the damnedest man," she said, a trace of warmth in her voice. "Women will do anything you want. How come I'm still a virgin at 28? Maybe because you haven't met the right man. I don't know any really nice ones except you, and I'm no pushover for a white smile and slick talk." I stood, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her hard. Her lips yielded, but there was no tremble, no surrender. She was too clear-eyed for that. "I'm too shop-worn for you," I whispered. "Take me," she said softly. "I have dreams too." I let her go. "We have to save a man's life first." She watched me leave with a grave face. "The women you get and the women you don't, they live in different worlds. I'd learned to live in both. At Los Angeles International, you can't get close to the planes unless you're boarding one. I prowled the barriers, copied arrival schedules, waited like a stray dog. Planes landed. Planes took off. Passengers, hurried children, whined porters, sweated. I passed Anne once or twice, but she didn't acknowledge me. At 5:45, the arrivals had thinned. She was gone. I waited 30 more minutes, then gave up and drove back to my office through the crowded miles. At 6:45, the phone rang. "I think I've got them," Anne's voice said. "Beverly Weston Hotel Room 410. I couldn't get names. The clerks don't leave registration cards out anymore, but I rode up in the elevator with them." "What were they like?" "Quiet suits, nothing flashy. One blue tie, one black, striped with gray. Black shoes. Businessmen, maybe lawyers or doctors. You wouldn't look twice. Medium brown hair, smooth faces. One had gray eyes, the other blue. Their eyes were sharp, always moving. And they carried briefcases. One gray with stripes, the other blue and white tartan." I whistled softly. "Good work, Anne. You'll take over now?" "I will. If they're the right men, they'll follow me. I've already taken an apartment across from Icky's. I'll watch and wait." "You're too wise to be so nice," she said. "But be careful." She hung up. I puzzled over her, then called Icky. He wasn't home. I drank, smoked, and tried again. This time he answered. I told him the score, the hotel, the apartment, the plan. "Do I get expenses?" I asked. $5,000 covers the lot if you earn it," he said. I didn't expect to see the rest of the money. Men like Rosenstein would steal their mother's gold teeth if they could. Still, I spent half an hour trying to work out a plan. None looked promising. I was about to leave the office when the buzzer sounded from my waiting room. A small, tight-faced man stood there, rocking on his heels, smiling like a snake. "You, Marlowe." "Who else?" He stepped close, pulled a gun, and shoved it into my stomach. "You can lay off Rosenstein, or you can get a bellyful of lead." He was an amateur, that much was clear. If he'd stayed 4 feet away, I might have been in trouble. But a gun jammed into the stomach is an invitation. I took the cigarette from my mouth, let my hand fall lazily, and said, "What makes you think I know any Rosenstein?" He sneered high-pitched laugh and pressed the barrel harder. "Wouldn't you like to know?" That was all I needed. I dropped the cigarette and swept his hand sideways. I can be fast when I need to. My thumb snapped behind the trigger, my grip locked over his. Then I kneed him hard in the groin. He folded with a whimper, surprise and pain twisting his face. I stripped the gun from his hand, hooked my heel behind his, and sent him sprawling to the floor. He rolled, groaning, his knees tight against his stomach. I hauled him up by the arm, shoved him into my office, and dropped him into a chair. He sat there, blinking, gasping sweat, plastering his hair to his forehead. I poured him a stiff shot of scotch in a paper cup, set it down, and broke open his revolver. 6 rounds went into my desk drawer. "That's a dirty way to fight," he rasped. "Sure," I said. "Shooting a man is so much cleaner. Why don't you screw yourself? Why don't you tell me who sent you?" He wiped his face with a damp handkerchief. "I trailed Rosenstein here. He's dumb. I followed without trouble. People want to know why he went to see a private eye." "You don't have much to say," I told him. "If this was an assignment, you're a messenger boy, nothing more." His lips curled. "You think you're a lot of man? You wouldn't even make pinch runner in my league?" I laughed, grabbed his wrist, and twisted until he yelped. From his breast pocket, I pulled a wallet. Driver's license said Charles Hicken, probably a fake. These punks always had names like Tiny Slim or Marble. I tossed it back. He fumbled, missed, and it fell to the floor. "Run along back to your laundry," I said, tossing the empty revolver onto the desk. "Next time, don't get close enough for someone to take your gun." He scowled, shoved the revolver into his waistband, and slouched toward the door. At the threshold, he threw me a final glare. "Stay clean, tin horn. Tin bends easy." When the door closed, I killed the lights, locked up, and left. Nobody tailed me. At my house, I packed a suitcase, stored my car at a friendly gas station, and picked up a rental Chevrolet. With it, I drove to the cheap apartment I'd rented across from Icky's place on Pointer Street. Then I went for dinner. Victor's was crowded, noisy, smelling of onions and cheap perfume. I ordered a double Gibson with fresh lime and felt hungry enough to eat the menu. On the way back, I weaved through side streets, doubled around corners, stopped with the gun on the seat beside me. No tails. At a service station on Sunset, I called Bernie Oles, chief investigator for the sheriff's office. "It's Marlowe," I said. "I'm on a ticklish job where I could get killed." "You expect me to interfere with the course of nature?" he asked dryly. "Come off it, Bernie. I'm trying to save an ex-mobster from a couple of executioners. The more they mow each other down, the better I like it." "Yeah, but if I call, you'll send help." We traded a few insults, then hung up. Next call was to Rosenstein. His voice came rough. "Talk." "Be ready around midnight," I said. "The boys are at the Beverly Weston, but they won't move tonight. They don't know you've been tipped." He breathed heavily into the line. "Who tailed me here?" "Some little punk with a gun. Amateurs. They don't want me to know too much. I figure it means trouble." He cursed. "Midnight," I said. "Douse your lights by 10, rumple the bed, and leave baggage behind. We'll walk out together. Hands in pockets, guns ready. If anybody calls your name, turn fast and shoot. Nobody but a killer will do that." He grunted. "Okay, but we're taking chances." "So do race drivers," I told him. "Doesn't stop them." Later, I parked the rental around the corner and watched from my apartment window. Women came and went from Icky's building. A man his size slipped inside. Others passed through. The night was too quiet. Midnight felt far away. When the time came, I left my building, circled 2 blocks to check for tails, and went up to Icky's third-floor room. He opened with a gun in his hand, eyes scared. 3 suitcases waited by the door. I tested 1 clothes and supplies, nothing fancy. "We'll stash these by the back door," I said. He nodded, licking his lips. We carried the bags, set them down, then walked casually out the front. Nobody moved. The street was empty. Around the corner, he unlocked his rental. Together, we loaded the suitcases, drove off, and hit the freeway. California traffic is a rat race. If you don't drive 80, everyone passes you. If you do, you keep one eye on the rear view for highway patrol. Icky settled at 70. We took Route 66 to Pomona. "This is far enough," I said. "I'll catch a bus back." He pulled over, reached into his pocket, and handed me 4 crisp $1,000 bills. "Take it. You earned it." "I don't feel like I did." "Don't be a sap. I've got plenty, but your troubles are just beginning. The outfit's got eyes everywhere." He laughed, put the car into gear, and gunned away. I found a liquor store, bought a pint, and waited for the Greyhound. My troubles, he said, were just beginning. And he was right. The Greyhound dropped me at the Hollywood station in the small hours. I grabbed a taxi, rode to my office, and let the colored night man open the building for me. He gave me the usual smile. "You always work late, Mr. Marlowe." "It's that kind of business," I said. Upstairs, the office was stale with smoke and dust. On my desk sat a narrow package, special delivery, Glendale postmark. I opened it. Inside was nothing but a freshly sharpened yellow pencil. The mob's mark of death. I didn't take it too hard. When they really mean it, they don't send warnings. But I knew what it meant, lay off Rosenstein, or take a beating as an example. I thought of Ann, and knew I couldn't go to her place in Bay City. If the outfit figured out who she was, they'd think nothing of hurting her. My cheap apartment on Pointer Street was safer. I tossed the pencil in a drawer, locked up, and rode back to my hideout. The broken springs in the bed jabbed my back until 3:30 a.m., when I finally dozed off with the revolver in my hand. Morning light made me feel like spoiled meat. I washed, dressed, and went hunting for breakfast. At a greasy spoon nearby, a tired waitress slapped crumbs across my lap as she wiped the counter. "Save the crumbs for a rainy day, sweetheart," I told her. "Just give me 2 eggs, 3 minutes toast, tomato juice, and that beautiful smile." "I've got a cold," she said. "Push me, and I'll crack you one." She wasn't joking. I smiled back, and when she brought the food, I left a quarter tip just to see her face brighten. Back at the apartment, I sat at the window with coffee. At 8:30, a man stepped out of the building across the street, small briefcase in hand. His build was close to Rosenstein's. 2 men in quiet suits slid from a dark blue sedan, hats, low revolvers, ready. "Hey, Icky," one called. The man turned. "So long, Icky," the other said. Gunfire cracked between the buildings. The man crumpled to the sidewalk. The shooters bolted for their car, slid inside, and sped off west. A Cadillac pulled out ahead of them, running interference. In moments, both cars vanished. It was a clean, professional hit, except they'd killed the wrong man. I slipped away almost as fast as the killers. A crowd was already gathering. Sirens howled in the distance. I didn't wait to answer questions. By the time I reached my office, my stomach felt like lead. I hated the stale air, hated myself for getting into this. Why hadn't I taken a government job years ago? The country was full of lawyers who couldn't write a complaint without the book. I had brains enough for that. Instead, here I was waiting for the cops. The knock came. Bernie Oles scowled his way into my office, chewing an unlit cigarette. "Ever hear of a man named Rosenstein?" "Why would I?" I asked. "Because he's marked. Mob put a pencil through his name and sent 2 boys on a plane. You got mixed up in it." I lit a cigarette and blew smoke in his face. "Suppose a man wants to go straight. He's entitled to his life. Rosenstein told me he never killed anyone. I neither believed him nor disbelieved him, but he hired me. A girl I know spotted the killers and tailed them to a hotel. She was sure." Bernie's jaw tightened. "That girl got a name. Ann Reen, Bay City. Her father used to be chief of police. Don't say that makes him a crook. He wasn't." "Uh-huh," Bernie said. "And what else?" "I got Rosenstein out at midnight, drove him as far as Pomona. He went on in his rental. I came back on a bus. Took an apartment across from his flop, figured it safer." "Why safer?" I opened my desk drawer, took out the yellow pencil, and shoved it at him. Because of this. He frowned. They'll want to talk to you, Phil. You saw the shooting. They'll love recording your voice. I knew what that meant, long hours of pointless questions until some detail slipped out, and I couldn't afford that. After he left, I sat there wondering if I'd been a fool to take the job at all. $5,000 said no, but $5,000 could be wrong. A knock on the door again. Telegram. I signed for it, tore it open. On my way to Flagstaff, Mirador Motor Court. Think I've been spotted. Come fast. It was signed Rosenstein. I ripped the message into pieces, burned them, and called Anne. Told her what had happened, told her about the pencil and the wrong man shot. You should never have touched it, Phil, she said. Icky had a life. Maybe he could make himself decent, but now you're in it too. I'm not done, I told her. The city cops will know where I am soon enough, and the reporters will too. I can't run, but if I'm smart, maybe I can finish this. The buzzer rang again. I opened the outer door. A tall, elegant man stepped inside. Cream-colored suit, narrow tie, with a gold buckle, white shirt, gold lighter cigarette between his fingers. He had a dishonest smile that looked perfectly polished. My name's Foster Grimes, he said calmly. From Las Vegas. I run Rancho Esperanza. I hear you've gotten yourself a little involved with Rosenstein. Grimes strolled into my office as though he owned the building. His cream suit was perfectly tailored. The tie glinted with its ornamental buckle, and the gold lighter seemed like part of his hand. He moved with the ease of a man who never heard no. Where is Rosenstein now? He asked, seating himself, without being told. I don't know, I said. You helped him leave town. That much I know. And you're telling me this only because you've already told another man, who... A friend of mine, sheriff's office. We're not kissing buddies, but we go back. Grimes smiled thinly. We have a unique setup in Vegas. We own the place except for one newspaper editor. We let him live because it makes us look generous. Killing is bad business these days. Executions are different. Rosenstein went out of line, so the boys acted. The mistake with the wrong man, that was your fault, Marlowe. They hurried because you meddled. We don't like sloppy work. Who's this great big we you keep talking about? I asked. Don't go juvenile on me. Here's what we want. He laid a $1,000 bill on the desk. Find Rosenstein. Tell him to get back in line. Another $1,000 when you give him the message. If he refuses, curtains. Suppose I take your $1,000 and use it to blow my nose. That would be unwise. He slid a Colt Woodsman from his coat. It had a short silencer. His movements were smooth, too smooth, the genial smile never shifting. I never left Vegas. I can prove it. You're dead in your chair, another private eye who made the wrong pitch. Put your hands on the desk and think carefully. I flipped the pencil across the desk. He caught it with his left hand, still holding the gun steady with his right. Recognize that? I asked. Came to me by mail. No note, just the pencil. When they mean it, they don't send one. But it's the mark of death all the same. He frowned, tossed it down. In that instant, I dropped my hand under the desk and wrapped my fingers around the butt of the .45 I kept fixed there. Look down, Mr. Grimes. You'll see a .45 pointed at your belt. Even if you shoot me through the heart, my hand will convulse and your belly will be hanging by a shred. Think that over. His eyes flickered, then he slowly holstered his gun. Nice smooth work, Marlowe. We could use you. You've got your own problems, I said. Find Rosenstein. He'll listen to reason. He doesn't want to run forever. You'll never be free until you play it our way. Why pick on me? I asked. Apart from Rosenstein, what did I ever do? He thought for a moment, then said, The Larson case. You fingered one of our boys. He went to the gas chamber. We don't forget that. We had you in mind as a fall guy for Rosenstein. You'll always be a fall guy unless you cooperate. You've got a long memory, I said. But the cops did the work. I just knew where to find him. We don't like interference, Grimes said flatly. I let go of the .45, pulled my .38 from my coat, and laid it on the desk. Take your $1,000 and leave, quietly. He pocketed the bill, looked at my gun with contempt, and stood. I'll be in Vegas, the Esperanza. We don't care about Rosenstein personally. He's just another gun handler. But we don't like some punk private eye fingering him. Think it over, Marlowe. When the door shut behind him, I called Anne. I'm going after Rosenstein. If you don't hear from me in 3 days, call Bernie Oles. He wired me from Flagstaff Mirador Motor Court. He thinks he's been spotted. You're a fool, she said. It's a trap. Maybe, but Grimes came here with a silenced gun. I beat him to the punch this time. I won't always be so lucky. If I find Rosenstein report back, maybe they'll leave me alone. You'd condemn him to death. He won't be there when I report. He'll have to find forged papers, hop a plane to Montreal, then Europe. That's the only way. And what about your own pencil, Marlowe? They don't send one when they mean it. It was just a scare tactic. You wonderful, stubborn brute, she said. Don't take any lovers until I get back. Damn you, Marlowe. She slammed the phone down. Saying the wrong thing was my specialty. I left town before the homicide boys could tie me to the killing. By evening, I was in Phoenix, parked at a motor court. Too hot to breathe, but at least it had a dining room. I ate collected change from the cashier and shut myself in a phone booth. Mirador Motor Court Flagstaff, I asked. No Rosenstein registered. Not under his name anyway. Could have been Cohen Corleone Watson or anything else. I booked a room for myself the next night, then bought a paperback to kill the hours. Set the alarm for 6:30 a.m. read until my eyes hurt, and finally switched off the light. Morning, I shaved, showered, ate, and drove north. By lunchtime, I was in Flagstaff. Rosenstein sat in the restaurant chewing mountain trout like a man who didn't have a care in the world. I slid into the seat across from him. His eyes widened, but he didn't speak. I ordered trout and ate it clean the way it should be done. What gives, he asked through a mouthful. Let's talk in your room, I said. There's more than fish on the plate. We paid walk to his double at the motor court and sat with cigarettes lit. I told him about the hit on Pointer Street, about the wrong man lying dead. He grinned. That's a hot one, but it don't change nothing. The tag's still on me. Maybe. But the cops will figure it out, and so will the outfit. The pencil still stands. He leaned forward, his rusty voice sharper. You think I'm dumb? You got me out slick. That's why you're here. But don't expect thanks. Rosenstein flicked his cigarette, his grin fading. I don't catch, Marlowe. You got me out of there, so give me back some of that $5,000. I'm shorter than I thought. You'll get it back, I said, when you find a hummingbird in a salt shaker. His rusty voice turned sour. Don't be like that. He sighed, then faster than a twitch of muscle, a gun appeared in his hand. I didn't need to reach. I already had one in my side pocket. Put it away, Icky. Slot machines in Vegas pay better than that trick. Every so often, they hit a jackpot. You won't. His grin came back jagged and bitter. Listen good, Marlowe. You're too clever for your own skin. The outfit's playing you, and you don't even see it. Then enlighten me. He leaned back, eyes narrowed. The pencil they sent you, cheap theater. They don't warn when they mean it. They want you to think you're in deep to keep you dancing. And Grimes from Vegas. He's a front man waving cash like a preacher waves the Bible. They want you as the patsy, the sap who takes the fall when things go wrong. Maybe, I said, but you still ran to me. Why? Because I lost my moxie, he said flatly. That's all. I couldn't do it alone. You were handy, and I figured maybe you were dumb enough to try. His grin cracked again, showing a row of teeth his dentist must have hated waiting for. I studied him, wondering why I hadn't walked away. Maybe it was the little streak of decency he showed when he said women weren't made for rough stuff. Maybe it was because I wanted to prove I could beat the syndicate at its own game, even just once. He kept talking, voice rising. You think the outfit sends in mistakes? No, Marlowe. They let two pros shoot the wrong man just to prove they could. Just to show they've got time to play footsie with you. They've got dozens of boys who'd love to put you in the ground. And when they're done with me, they'll pencil you for sport. That's one theory, I said. But you're forgetting something. You're already penciled. You're not supposed to still be breathing. Which means, he said, his eyes glittering, I'm already dead. And so are you. He raised the gun, but not quick enough. My little .32 spat once from my pocket. His gun spun from his hand, clattering to the rug. He howled, clutching his bleeding wrist, the rusty voice breaking into a whine. I crossed the room, booted the weapon out of reach, and shoved him into a chair. I'm not the one you play sucker with, Icky. You're breathing because I haven't decided otherwise. Remember that. He moaned, sagging against the chair. I frisked him thoroughly, holsters, pockets, belt line. Clean now. I pulled a pair of cuffs from my coat, snapped them on his wrists behind his back, and tied off the wound with his own handkerchief. "You've got problems," I told him. "Yours is staying alive long enough for the law to get its hands on you. Mine is figuring out why I keep tripping over corpses with your name on them." He sagged and muttered, "I paid you. You're clear. I paid you damn well." "Paid me, yes," I said. "But we both know that money's mob money. Dirty bills with blood on the edges. That makes me just another name on their ledger." I left him groaning in the chair and called the Flagstaff police. The district attorney himself came down, a sharp-eyed young man with the chief of police built like a brick wall. Arizona was still poor, still a little honest, which was exactly what I needed. I handed Rosenstein over and stuck around a few days while they booked him and took their statements. He broke under pressure, named the two gunmen the T brothers, though. By then, they'd already vanished. Nobody could find them. No home, no trace, no witnesses. The law couldn't even charge Rosenstein with conspiracy. All they could do was leave him where his friends could reach him, which was the cruelest sentence of all. By the time I rolled back into Los Angeles, I was tired enough to collapse. But Anne was waiting, and I took her to Romanoff's for champagne. We sat across from each other, her gray-blue eyes watching me over the rim of her glass. "What I can't see," she said, "is why they dragged you into it at all. Why not just let the killers finish Rosenstein? Why the false setups, the pencils, the fake fronts? Maybe they're too safe," I told her. "Maybe they're developing a sense of humor. Or maybe this Larson fellow I fingered for the gas chamber was bigger than he looked. Only a few top mobsters ever make it to the chair. They don't forgive that easily." "And what about the $5,000 they gave you?" she asked. "Dirty money." "Dirty's right," I said. "But clean or not, it bought me time. I could invest it in bonds, maybe laugh at the joke." She sipped the last of her champagne and shook her head. "You risk your life for people who'd sell you out for nickels, and you still crack jokes." "That's what I like about you, Marlowe." I didn't answer. I was too busy watching the bubbles rise in my glass, thinking about the men already dead and the ones still hunting. The extradition papers went through faster than I expected. They dragged Rosenstein back west, and when the pressure mounted, he cracked like a rotten beam. He named the T brothers, but it was too late. They had evaporated into the American night, neat as smoke, slipping through a chimney. The law couldn't touch them, couldn't even prove Rosenstein had known they'd killed the wrong man. The outfit was clever that way, always leaving gaps big enough for a good lawyer to drive through. Anne listened to the story while her champagne glass turned circles between her fingers. So they let him go. "They had no choice," I said. "The law doesn't move on hunches, but the outfit will. His own friends will deal with him." Her mouth tightened. "Where is he now?" "My hunch says nowhere. The outfit doesn't forgive mistakes." She nodded slowly, then leaned back. "It's over then. You're safe." Safe? That was a word I'd never trusted. In my line of work, it was nothing more than a word you said to children when you tucked them into bed. There's no safe when men carry pencils that cross out lives as casually as adding up columns of numbers. Later that night, after Anne had gone home, I sat alone with a glass of rye. The money Rosenstein had shoved at me still burned in my pocket. $5,000. Clean bills, but dirty all the same. What did you do with money soaked in fear and murder? If you kept it, it ate at you. If you gave it back, you made yourself look like a fool. Anne's words came back to me, "Buy bonds, make it clean." She thought I was joking when I said it, but maybe I wasn't. Turning the syndicate's money into savings bonds for the government had a kind of twisted poetry to it. I poured another drink thinking about Rosenstein. He had a chance to disappear, but instead he clung to the illusion that he could bargain with the same men who wanted him erased. In the end, he served his purpose. He drew fire, and the bullets that should have been his ended up in some poor man's chest across Pointer Street. I still saw that body when I closed my eyes, medium build, wrong place, wrong time, wrong face. The outfit didn't care. A man dead was a box ticked, a page turned. I tried to sleep, but dreams twisted around me like barbed wire. Guns in briefcases, pencils, scratching names, Anne's gray-blue eyes asking me why I kept walking into shadows I couldn't beat. When morning finally shoved its way through the blinds, I felt older than the night before. Business picked up again. A cheating wife, a missing necklace, a drunk husband who swore someone was trying to kill him, but really just wanted someone to listen. The little cases that kept the lights on. They were cleaner than Rosenstein, but only just. Nothing stays clean long in Los Angeles. I saw Ann again the following week. We walked the beach in Bay City, the sun bouncing off the water like shards of glass. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back, her eyes brighter than I deserved to see. "You still thinking about him?" she asked. "Rosenstein." She nodded. "Not him," I said. "The mistake. The man they gunned down instead." Her hand brushed my arm. "You couldn't stop it, Phil. You're not God." "No," I said. "But sometimes I wonder if God's even paying attention." We stopped at a bench overlooking the water. She sat close, her shoulder warm against mine. "Why do you do it?" she asked quietly. I stared at the horizon, where the sea met the sky in a crooked line. Because somebody has to. Because when a man's name gets penciled, he deserves one last chance to fight back, even if he's rotten. "And what about you?" she asked. "Who erases your name when it's written down?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The waves rolled in steady as time. Her hand lingered on mine, light and fleeting, like she was afraid of what it meant. I wanted to turn to her to tell her what I never said, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I lit a cigarette, and the smoke drifted between us like a wall. We walked back in silence. That night back in my office, the phone rang. Bernie Oles again. His voice was flat. "Your boy Rosenstein's gone." "Gone how?" "They let him out. No charges they could stick, but he didn't get far. Somebody found him in an alley behind a bar on Alameda, 2 slugs in the chest. Clean work." I didn't answer. "Don't lose sleep," Bernie said. He had it coming. Maybe he did. But the image of that yellow pencil stayed with me, the casual stroke of death across a man's life. Rosenstein had been erased. And I was still standing waiting for the pencil to scratch my name next. The city moved on from Rosenstein's death as if he had never existed. A couple of paragraphs in the back pages of the paper, a name most readers didn't recognize. And that was that. In Los Angeles, corpses came and went with the same regularity as movie premieres. Nobody lingered unless the dead man was rich or famous. Rosenstein had been neither. But I couldn't shake the thought of him. The way he sweated in my office, clutching that $1,000 bill like it was a lifeline. The way his voice broke when he admitted he'd lost his nerve. He wasn't a good man, but he was still a man, and he'd been erased as neatly as chalk off a blackboard. The syndicate didn't even flinch. Ann called me the next evening. "Come down to Bay City," she said. "You need air. You sound like you're talking from the bottom of a well." Her house was neat as ever, the hedges trimmed, the tiger's head knocker shining in the porch light. She opened the door in a pale dress, and for a moment I thought about what life would be like if I'd met her in some other world, a cleaner one. But then the thought faded. "You look tired," she said. "I feel tired." She poured me a drink scotch on the rocks, and we sat in her living room. "Bernie told me what happened," she said. "About Rosenstein, about the alley." I nodded. "They got him as soon as the law let go." "That was always how it was going to end," she said softly. "You know that. Doesn't make it sit any easier?" She studied me for a long time, her gray-blue eyes steady. "Why does it matter to you he wasn't a saint? He wasn't even close." "Because they didn't just kill him," I said. "They owned him. They owned his life, his death, the very minutes in between. And when I see that, I know the pencil's still sharp. One day they'll write my name too." "You're not them, Phil." "No, but I work in their world. That rubs off." She reached across and touched my hand, firm and sure. "Then leave it. Walk away. Come down here. Take a new start." Her hand was warm. Her eyes were clear. For a moment I wanted to believe her. But I knew better. Men like me don't walk away. We walk in circles until the circle closes. I drained the glass. I can't, you know that. The silence between us was heavy, filled with all the things we wouldn't say. She stood finally crossed to the window and looked out at the dark street. "Then at least promise me one thing. Don't let them take away who you are. Not completely." I couldn't promise her that. but I nodded anyway. Back in my office, the days blurred. A few small jobs came in: missing persons, stolen goods, jealous husbands. I took them, worked them, filed them away. But in every shadow, I kept expecting the pencil. It came one night in a different form. I was walking back from a cheap dinner on Sunset when I noticed a man leaning on the hood of a parked car across the street. Hat low, coat, neat shoes polished. He lit a cigarette, and the flare of the match showed a face I didn't know. Too neat, too calm, the kind of man who could carry a briefcase with a gun inside and look like an accountant. I crossed the street toward him. He didn't move. Lost something, I asked. He blew smoke eyes, cool, just waiting for a friend. Yeah? What's his name? His mouth twitched. Does it matter? It didn't. We both knew why he was there. He didn't pull a gun. Neither did I. We stood there, two men in a city, too big for both of us, and then he flicked his cigarette into the gutter and slid into the car. The engine started, and the sedan rolled away, taillights glowing red. A warning, nothing more. But warnings meant eyes were still on me. I went back to the office, poured 2 fingers of rye, and sat by the window. Somewhere out there, another name was being penciled. Maybe mine, maybe not yet. When the phone rang, I jumped. It was Anne. Phil. Yeah. Are you all right? I stared out at the empty street. For now. Promise me something, she said, her voice low. If the pencil comes for you, you'll call me first, just so I know. I closed my eyes. I wanted to tell her I would. Instead, I said, "Sure, Anne, I'll call." The lie tasted bitter, but it was the only gift I could give her. The days stretched thin, the kind of days when the phone doesn't ring and you wonder if the city has finally forgotten you. But Los Angeles never forgets, it just waits. I spent the hours staring at the pencil in my desk drawer. Every time I opened it, the sharp yellow shaft seemed brighter, more dangerous, as if it were alive. A mark, a warning, a joke. Maybe all three. I kept to routine. Coffee at Joe's Eats next door, lunch at a Greasy Spoon, whiskey at night. Cases trickled in: jealous husbands, wandering wives, a pawned heirloom or two, the small stuff. But under it all was the silence, the sense of being watched. Then one evening, as the sun bled across the smog, the office buzzer sounded. A uniformed boy stood in the doorway with a telegram. I signed, tore it open. Leave it alone. No signature, just those 3 words. I crumpled it, dropped it in the ashtray, and lit it with a match. The paper curled, turned black, then gray, then nothing. I poured myself a drink, but it didn't help the weight in my chest. That night I dreamed of Rosenstein again. Not the man himself, but the empty chair he left behind, a chair that might as well have had my name carved into the wood. I woke sweating, the city still humming outside like it always did. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Anne answered the door with surprise in her eyes. "Phil, what happened?" "Nothing yet," I said. "That's the trouble." She let me in. Her house smelled of coffee and soap, simple and clean. I envied that. I sat hands folded and stared at her neat little living room. "They sent another warning," I told her. Her lips tightened. "You should walk away, right now. Before you can't." I shook my head. "I don't know how." "You do. You just don't want to." Maybe, I admitted. But someone has to push back. If men like Rosenstein can just be erased, if any man can, then what's left? Just a city full of graves. She crossed to me, stood close. "And when they erase you, who's left to care?" I looked up at her. "You would." Her gray-blue eyes softened, and for a moment the walls between us cracked. She touched my face, light as a whisper. I wanted to take her hand to tell her I was done with all of it, but the words wouldn't come. They never did. Instead, I left. Back at the office, the phone rang just before midnight. Bernie Oles. His voice was flat, all the edges worn off. "It's over, Phil. Rosenstein's gone." "I know," I said. "No? I mean really gone? Found in a ditch outside Barstow, stripped of everything, clean work, professional?" I closed my eyes. "Then why call me?" "Because I thought you'd want to hear it from me, not the papers. And because you're on their list, whether you believe it or not." He hung up without waiting for an answer. I sat there in the dark, the pencil still in my drawer. The city still outside, restless and alive. Rosenstein was gone. His name erased, his story ended. But mine was still being written, one line at a time. I poured the last of the rye, held the glass up to the moonlight, and thought about Anne. Thought about her neat house, her clear eyes, the way she asked me to promise. I hadn't promised. Maybe because I knew I couldn't keep it. The whiskey burned, going down sharp and bitter, but it steadied me. Out there in the city, men carried pencils, and names were being crossed out. One day it would be mine. But until then, I would keep walking the streets, taking the cases, chasing the shadows. Not because I thought I could win, but because quitting was worse than losing. And maybe because someone like Anne still believed there was something in me worth saving. The city didn't change. It never did. The streets still filled with cars fighting each other for inches. Neon signs still buzzed and voices still rose and fell in the same tired rhythm. Los Angeles was a machine that didn't care who got ground down in its gears. Rosenstein was gone, erased without ceremony. The T brothers had vanished into thin air, and Foster Grimes was probably back in Vegas, lighting another gold-tipped cigarette with a smile as false as a $3 bill. But their shadows stayed. They always stayed. I tried to work cases again, little ones, a man missing his dog, a wife who wanted to know where her husband went at night, a pawn ticket with no explanation. Work that didn't mean anything but kept me from thinking too hard. I filed reports, wrote invoices, cashed checks, yet every time I opened my desk drawer, that yellow pencil gleamed up at me sharp and smug, daring me to forget. Anne came by the office one evening. She looked tired, but her eyes were steady. She took the chair across from me, crossed her legs, and studied me the way she always did, like she was searching for something I hadn't given her yet. "You don't look good, Phil," she said quietly. "I'm not good," I answered. "Never was." "That's not true. You're better than you think." I laughed, but it came out rough. Rosenstein thought he could bargain his way free. He was wrong. I thought maybe I could beat the syndicate at its own game. I was wrong, too. "You're still here," she said. "For now." Silence filled the office, heavy as smoke. I watched her, wanting to tell her she deserved better than me, wanting to say I'd walk away, buy a house near the ocean, grow old watching the waves. But the words wouldn't form. They never did. Instead, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the pencil. I held it up between us, the light catching the sharpened point. "This is what they do, Anne. They write a name, then draw a line through it. Clean, simple, final." Her eyes glistened. "And yours?" "Not yet," I said, "but it will be, one day." She leaned forward, her voice sharp with feeling. "Don't let them decide that for you. Don't give them that power." For the first time in a long while, I had no answer. She stood, came around the desk, and bent close. Her hand rested on my shoulder, her lips brushed my cheek, and she whispered, "Don't become one of them. Stay, you, Phil. Promise me that much." I wanted to promise. I almost did, but all I managed was a nod. When she left, the office felt emptier than it ever had. I sat there for a long time staring at the pencil until the night settled in and the city outside turned into a blur of lights. Safe wasn't a word that belonged to men like me. We lived on borrowed time, and every drink, every cigarette, every case was a reminder that the ledger could close at any moment. But while I was still breathing, I'd keep walking into the shadows because someone had to. And maybe because of one woman who believed I was still worth something. So I poured myself another drink, lit another cigarette, and told the pencil it would have to wait. If you've been with me through this story, remember, this life isn't about how clean the ledger is, but how hard you fight before the line gets drawn through your name. If this story struck something in you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share it with someone who loves a good twist, and subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you'd have done if the pencil came for you.